Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jewish Stripper, Real, Raw, and Real with Ala Kaplan. And today, if you're new to me, by the way, my name is Ala Kaplan. I'm a former stripper, not a current stripper. In any case, this is my podcast called The Jewish Stripper, Raw and Real with Ala Kaplan. And today I'm talking again about censorship because Facebook has decided to take down one of my videos again, where I'm talking about the war in Israel and Palestine and things that are going on in the world that are important to me as a Jewish woman. So, as a Jewish woman, what's very important to me right now is I've been seeing a lot of stuff about basically extreme Islamism, extreme Muslims taking over America. And this is not just about the war in Israel. This is not just about Hamas's war against the Jews or Israel. If you've never seen any of my podcasts previously, I have talked about this because it is something important to me, not just as a Jewish woman, but because I'm an American and I have the right to free speech just like any other American, whatever race or religion they are. But it seems that our right a right of the Jewish people when they speak out to defend themselves is somehow less than the right of extreme Muslims and people who are pro Hamas. And I'm not even saying pro Palestine. I'm not even saying anything about the war. But when you talk about Hamas, Hamas is not a religious organization. It is a terrorist organization. Just like Al Qaeda was a terrorist organization, ISIS was a terrorist organization, the Taliban was a terrorist organization, and all of these organizations are were basically against America. This is not about just the Jewish people. This is not about Israel. This is about freedom of speech and freedom and censorship. And when you're taking freedom of speech away from people who are just defending themselves, and when you're giving freedom of speech to hate speech, we have a problem. We have a huge problem because they're talking about burning down America. They're not just burning the Israeli flag, they're burning the American flag. And to me, what happened on October 7th in Israel was not just a wake-up call to the Israeli people, and it wasn't just murder, just outright murder. I didn't do an episode last week because it was Easter, and I chose to not do anything on Easter because I have respect for other religions, and I have respect for other people who basically, if their religion does not coincide with what I believe, I still feel they have the right to practice it. but you don't have the right to go murder. You don't have the right to rape. You don't have the right to take people hostages. That is not freedom of speech. That is not a revolution. That is not what they call it, a renaissance, for some sort of renaissance, or it's not even you're complicit, in my opinion, when you're pro Hamas, when you're against not just any specific group of people, but an entire country. And they talk about burning America. They burn the American flag. They talk about taking over the world. Jewish people have never tried to take over the world, no matter how many conspiracy theories you throw at us. We're only 0.2% of the entire population. And the reason we're only 2% of the entire population is because 6 million Jews were killed in the World War II. Last week was what's called Yom HaShoah. HaShoah is the Holocaust in Hebrew. Yom is day. It was the day of remembrance. It was the day that we remembered not just the 6 million Jews who were killed. We also now there is a second Holocaust from October 7th, where 1,400 or 1,500 young people were killed at a music festival for only being Jewish. They didn't care if they were peace activists. They didn't care if they were respectful of other religions or races. The only thing that they cared about was the fact that they were Jewish. And it was a declaration of war, where children were killed in their mother's wombs, children were put in ovens. And I'm not going to stop talking about this. And I'm going to say this, and this is raw and real. I call it raw and real, and there's no holds barred today, because I am on fire. I'm on fire for the fact that I have something to say about all of this. And other people have the right to go and block the entrance to universities, to go and make encampments on universities, that these young people believe that what they're doing is they're revolutionaries and they're rebels, that this is a rebellion, that somehow Israel is a colonizer, that somehow Israelis are settlers. You can't be a colonizer and you can't be a settler in your own. You can't be a colonizer and you cannot be a settler in your own land. The Jews lived in the land of Israel, and what was called Palestina, it was not Palestine. It was the territory of Palestina that belonged to the British Empire, that no one did anything with for thousands of years. Their only job was to keep out the Jews from coming back there. And 6 million Jews were killed because they wanted to go back to their land. They were too comfortable in Europe, in my opinion. And they lived side by side with the Palestinian Arabs. They are Arabs, make no mistake. They lived side by side with the Palestinian Arabs for thousands of years, until 1948, when Israel was declared a country. When the Jews accepted the British partition, and when they accepted to create the state of Israel. And a war was fought and a war was won. But it was never going to be good enough for the Arab Palestinians. Let me make this clear. And I have nothing against Arabs, and I have nothing against Muslims. There is no hate speech in my videos. What my problem is that people who scream from the river to the sea, people who scream burn America, not just Israel, but burn America. This is my problem. This is what I as a Jew have to live with on a daily basis now. And actually my family has been living with this on a daily basis for the fact that they are Jews from the beginning of time. Before there was an Islam, Jews were being slaughtered. Before there, you can go look at a history book and you can read a history book and you will see that the Jewish people have always been the scapegoat for all the problems in the world. We are not your problem. And I say this to Hamas. I say this directly to supporters of Hamas. I say this directly to people, young people around the world who think that Hamas are some sort of liberators, because the only thing that the Palestinian people need to be liberated from is groups like Hamas, is groups like ISIS, is groups like the Taliban, is groups like Al-Qaeda. The only thing that the Palestinian people should be liberated from is their own leaders, their own people that they chose to lead them. The people who they allow to put rockets in their homes, to shoot into Israel and to shoot out of schools, to use humans as shields, and to build terror tunnels where they can kidnap hostages from Israel too. And let me make it very clear, I am not against Palestine or Palestinian people having their own country. I am not against the Palestinian people being self-governed. I am not against anyone, any Palestinian Arabs being peacefully living side by side with the Israelis. I am not against a two-state solution. What I'm against is the people that refuse to ever accept that fact. I am against the people that refuse to accept that the Jews have the right to exist and that America has the right to exist and be its own country the way we are now. What they want is an entire world of caliphates. They want to live by the laws from the very countries that their parents have left. Some of these young people are not first generation Arabs or Palestinians here in America. What my problem is that, as I've said before, where are the peaceful Muslims? Because I'm sorry to say this, and I hate to say this, but the truth has to be spoken. When there are acts of terror committed around the world, this is not racist. This is not to say that only a particular group of people commits terror acts. But history doesn't lie. History tells us that these people are the ones who mostly commit terrorist acts, and then wonder why our rights are being shredded away. And then they use these people, a lot of these people are coming to America And let me tell you this, terrorizing Jewish people from walking, into a university, standing in front of a building, closing a bridge, closing down an airport, closing streets down for their demonstrations, for their hate speech against America, against the very freedom that America allows them, which is the freedom of speech. This is an erosion. This is an erosion of our country. Everything that you hold near and dear to your heart, every freedom that you enjoy now, every freedom that women enjoy, American women enjoy, working, wearing what they want to wear, every freedom is being eroded by these groups of people. Maybe no one wants to say this truth, and maybe it's a hard truth to tolerate, and maybe it's a hard truth to accept, and maybe it's something that leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and it should. It should leave a bad taste in your mouth, because the truth is that they want to have the Sharia laws, and they want to live by the laws that they've brought from the country that they wanted to get away from in the first place. They want freedom of speech and they want tolerance for their religion, but they're not giving anyone else the same exact rights. These people would rather erode your freedoms, erode your freedom to speak out against them. And this is why Facebook was taking down my video. And this is why I'm talking about freedom of speech today. And as I said previously, every time you take down my video, I'm just going to make a new video. This is what's going to happen. Every time you take down my video, I'll make a new one. And this might be, like I said, I have, we have had neighbors that are Muslim who are peaceful. I have no problem with people who want to live in a free society. And if they want to worship whatever God that they want to worship, that's fine by me. Just don't force it on anyone else. But the problem is that everyone who is not like them is considered an infidel, and infidels have to die, and infidels have to be killed, and infidels are being terrorized. Everyone that they consider an infidel is considered to be someone undesirable. And we're witnessing the same thing that we witnessed during World War II, during the reign of the Nazis, during the reign of Hitler, when people were undesirable, when the Jews were undesirable, when the Jews couldn't worship as they wished, when the Jews couldn't be part of society anymore, when it was decided that they were the scapegoat for every problem, that then there was a final solution. And the final solution was to kill all the Jews. Well, let me tell you, now the final solution that the Arab world is talking about, and we're talking about the Arab world here in America, the Muslim Brotherhood. If you haven't watched the news, just a few days ago, just shortly in Jordan, there was a shutdown of the Muslim Brotherhood for potential terrorist acts that were discovered were being planned in the country of Jordan, right next to Israel. And so if you're not afraid of what's going on in your own country here in America, you should be. You should be very afraid. And I usually end things on a positive note. There's nothing positive about any of this. The fact is that, like I said before, your very freedom of speech is being eroded, because the only freedom of speech that seems to be allowed now is against anyone who speaks out against Hamas. Anyone who is not considered desirable, anyone who is considered an infidel. Burn the flag, burn the American flag. They start with burning flags. What did they end up? They started with burning books in Nazi Germany. They ended up with burning people. So you should be very afraid, because when they start burning books, when they start burning flags, they're going to end up burning people, and they already burned people. They already burned people in Israel by setting children on fire in an oven, babies, by cutting them, choking them. When you are, and I will say this to you, and I will say this to any person who's listening who is pro-Hamas, and I will tell you this to the LGBTQ, the whole community who's on the bandwagon of being pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian, they would kill you for your lifestyle. They would hang you by whatever bits and pieces that they thought were undesirable of you. And if you're not afraid, you should be afraid of what's going on, not in Israel, not in Gaza, not halfway around the world, but in your own backyard, at the universities, at the schools, at every gathering where there is a hate speech against your own country, where when it's time, when people think it's time that they can't speak out against acts of terrorism, and I consider an act of terrorism being pro-Hamas. To me, if you consider the rape of women, innocent women, the killing of 1,500 people in one day, the kidnapping of people, of over 200 people in one day, if you see that as freedom fighters, if they consider themselves freedom fighters, as revolutionaries, as rebels, if you consider that a rebellion, if you are pro-Hamas, I hate to tell you, but in my eyes, you are complicit in those acts of violence. You are complicit, and if you're standing in front of a university, not letting someone walk in the building because they're Jewish to go and learn, if you're sitting in a tent on a campus, if you're blocking someone's way in a free country to walk into a building where they can go and learn, when you're blocking the streets so that you are causing chaos in a city, when you're blocking airports, when you are not condemning, but you are actually in defense of acts of terror, then you are complicit in those acts of terror. And that's what I'm telling you tonight. This is a short, very short message. And I wish everyone a good night. I wish you well and safety. And in the end, what I want to say is raise your voice. I have this platform and I'm going to use it. And if you love your freedom, then raise your voice against censorship. Raise your voice for freedom of speech. Raise your voice for your way of life that you love, that you don't want to lose, because you don't want to see this country run by extreme Muslims. Islam is a religion, but I hate to tell you this, but as I said before, every act of terror, if you go except for Oklahoma City, something like that happened in Oklahoma. Home raised terrorists are a whole nother another episode. But when you have now home raised terrorists who are extreme Islamists, and these people are jihadists, they want a jihad, and jihad is a war against the West. That's what jihad is, a war against the West. So this is not hate speech. This is not anti-Islam. But what I'm saying is, if you love your freedom, raise your voice. If you hate censorship, raise your voice. Be a beacon of light, not someone sitting in the dark, hoping that someone will come and save you. Because the only thing that's going to save us as a country, the only thing that's going to save America is Americans speaking up and standing up to people who want to burn our flag and burn our way of life. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you for watching. You can all find me at Ala Kaplan 3270 on YouTube. And I'm also on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple. And I will be uploading many more podcasts up to those platforms. Thank you.